Are you still shopping for the perfect crochet hook? With seemingly infinite options out there, how's a girl to choose? Well, I've tried a lot of crochet hooks, and I've noticed some things. So let's talk about hooks, and maybe by the end of this video, you'll have some new things to consider to help refine your search for the best hook for you. So to tackle such a big video of all things hook, I'm going to break it down in 2 sections. First, we'll talk tips. I've got a lot to say about tips. I've got some tips. Then we'll talk ergonomics, the comfort of the design, and then I'll give you my top picks of hooks I've tried so far. You may have heard that hooks can either be tapered or inline. This difference is best illustrated by the Boy tapered aluminum hooks and the Susan Bates Silvalume inline hooks. Basically, the tapereds stick out beyond the shaft and are ostensibly tapered at the tip. And inlines have a hook that remains in line with the shaft. Some find the hook of inlines sharp and prone to splitting yarn. Now, when you branch away from these big box store giants, you'll find brands that fall in between the spectrum of these 2 shapes. And this has caused an identity crisis for me. I inherited a bunch of Boy and Susan Bates hooks from my dear sweet grandma, and after trying them both, I came to the conclusion that I'm an inline gal, simply because I'm faster with a Silvalume. But as I pursued more ergonomic options, a lot of that got thrown into question. It all started with you, little furls. Upon first look, you may call these inline. But when I started using them, something about the experience wasn't smooth. I mentioned this in my dedicated furls review video. I noticed that while I was chaining, or otherwise pulling through the first loop on my hook, I faced a lot of friction. The yarn rubbing on itself mostly, or slightly on the sides of the tip. This causes me to need to put a little more tension on that pull-through motion, which can lead to tighter chains and stitches. That is when I discovered that hooks have cheeks. That's what I'm calling them anyway, cheeks. If you can imagine a line coming up from the throat of the hook, sitting slightly behind it is the cheek, and some hooks have chubby cheeks. And inline or no, I don't like chubby cheeks on my hook. It simply makes that loop grasped by the hook too wide and more difficult to pull through the next loop without friction. And I started to notice that I experienced this with any cheeky hook, and I didn't experience this friction with the cheekless hooks. So that's why I liked the Susan Bates Silvalumes. Not because they were inline, but because the throat was carved out in such a way that there was no cheek to get caught up on. In fact, look at this larger Silvalume that's actually cut a little differently. She's cheeky. And I don't like this hook as much as the others, and I didn't know why. Turns out it's all about those cheeks. And you know what? I've found tapered hooks that I like better. Tulip Etimo Rose, cheekless. Clover Amour, cheekless. If we even compare some ergonomic inlines, this is the Beechwood by Omi, compared to the Prim ergonomics, and see how they've hollowed out the cheeks of this Prim hook? Guess which one gives the smoother experience? If I could design my own line of hooks, they'd all look like this. I have no idea who makes this chunky hook. It's literally unmarked. I got it from my grandma, but look how tapered this tip is. She literally had buckle fat removal. This hook is perfect, a great example of the shape that works best for me. So do the cheeky hooks have any redeemable qualities? For that, we'll move on to ergonomics. It's no secret that holding a straight skinny stick for hours and hours and hours isn't great for your tendons. And crocheters have been buying or DIYing polymer clay handles for hooks for years. So a lot of manufacturers have tried different shapes and materials down the shaft to emulate this. Ergonomic improvements come in more shapes and sizes than the tips even do. Your preference here is going to come down to how you hold the hook. I hold my hook closer to the tip and overhand, so I actually find the bulbous ergos like furls and this Omi and this Mindful Knits hook a little uncomfortable, because it just adds weight to the end of the hook that I'm barely using. So it's kind of like straight knitting needles to me. Pinky strain. However, if you hold your hook like a pen, wow, this is super comfortable. And in this case, actually the Mindful Knits hook takes the cake. They did the bulb nice and compact, but wide, and towards the end, this feels really nice. And if I were to crochet underhand, I can actually twist my hook through the loop, which means I don't have to pull to get through that big cheek friction. And if I switch to overhand, that same turning or twisting motion involves a lot more of my wrist, so I wouldn't want to be doing that very much. But underhand, it's quite comfortable. I know overhanders love the rubberized handles on these Japanese-style hooks like Clover, Tulip, and these Daiso brand hooks here. They're not simply round, but provide a flattened spot for your thumb to give proper leverage for all the movements, which will also save you some wrist strain. So what is ergonomic for you will depend a lot on your crochet style. Kind of the best of both worlds, I think, are the Prim ergonomics. They've got a bulbousness, but it's rubberized and flat on the sides, so there's something for overhanders to hold on to too. Neither of both worlds is the Susan Bates attempt at ergonomics. Same great Silvolume hooks, but with a little case on the end, which is too low to change anything about the thumb spot, and kind of too small to provide any noticeable change to how it fits in my hand. So meh. If you already have Silvolumes, you don't need to go out and buy these, that's all I'm saying. So closing thoughts. Currently, I have nearly fully converted to tapered hooks, specifically the Tulip Etimo and Clover Amour. The Clover Amours have been the #1 recommended hook by you guys. My stubborn head thinking I only liked inline hooks took me this long to try it, and you guys are right. These hooks are great. I'm as fast as ever with the Clover Amours, and I have just as many good things to say about the Tulips. I may be reaching for the Tulips slightly more often. That might just be because they're pink. The Prim ergonomics are another great option. I find the handle nearly as comfortable, and it may be more versatile for different crochet styles. Its hook resembles more of an inline, and they did proper cheek reduction, but it does have that sharper tip if you're worried about splitting yarn. If there was a metal-tipped Prim ergo, I think that would be killer, because I prefer the slick metal hook and find the plastic just a hair too grippy. So that concludes everything I've ever wanted to say about crochet hooks, until I have something more to say. All relevant links can be found in the description of the video, and if you have some insights about these or any other hooks, please share below. These discussions have been invaluable for my crochet hook search, so keep them coming. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!